down to Pastry Time, who's got CLG support for an interview.
And thank you very much. I am here with Afro. Congratulations, firstly on the win, 2-0 versus P1. How's it feeling after that?
Feels okay. Feels okay.
Could feel a bit better? Maybe a little cleaner game?
Yeah, it was all right.
Fair enough. So I'm curious about what you think about the support meta currently, because you played quite a lot of Braum recently, despite kind of being the range support guy. And then you played Janna into Olaf and Braum in game number 2. Kind of what you're thinking there is with the picks.
They had a Trundle, Olaf, Tristana, Victor comp, and Olaf, all he wants to do is run on your team. So Janna counters that. You just exhaust him, and he can't do anything. Other than that, you know, I have my Janna ulti to protect everyone. So all the support champions right now, I think the pool is pretty big. Now that everyone picked up more range supports other than the meta melee types. So I just think the support champion pool has like over 10 champions you can pick, and you just have to like think about it if you want to put in your team comp. So the Janna of that game was definitely a really good pick for us.
Awesome, and certainly worked out for you guys. They're looking good. I'm curious in general, you guys kind of said that you were still feeling out the meta after coming back from MSI. Do you still feel like you're in that same spot, or have you got a better grasp now?
We have a better grasp now. We're just working on our Triforce, I call it, which is mid, jungle, and support. So I really suck at mid control in general. So usually, you know, you enable your mid your mid carry to push over the game and snowball it. We're really good at doing that bottom. We're really good at doing that top, but mid lane is just where we lack right now. So we're working on that throughout our LCS games.
Cool, and definitely showing up there. Who we had, I think, a pretty good series. Is there anything else you guys are working on, maybe outside of the game, like general teamwork? Because you guys are always that teamwork team. It's great to hear that you've clearly identified what you want to work on, but kind of what's the mood like in the team, and what have you guys been working on, trying to get back to that same status you were last split?
When we lose, sucks losing. We all hate losing, definitely. But it's pretty upbeat in terms of improvement throughout the team. Everyone is very supportive, and we're very easily critical of each other's mistakes and what we need to work on. So the main thing is just, you know, the Triforce, like I said before.
Awesome. And then finally, of course, next week, you've got some matches to play, and you actually have a rematch versus TSM, which will be quite a lot of fun. Are you looking forward to it? I know you guys love to play TSM. Maybe some revenge after losing the first game?
Not so much revenge, just looking to clean up our play coming into playoffs. And it's going to be fun playing against TSM, but it's always fun playing against any of the top 4 teams right now.
Awesome. Well, best of luck. Congratulations on the win today. But we are going to send it back to Dash and the gang at the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Pastry. CLG picking up that 2-0 victory over Phoenix1. So they'll be happy to have picked that up, increase their record. As we had mentioned, they do have energy left to play for the first half of the split, so they're going to look to close it out at that 4-5. I want to dive right into this one, and I'm going to just kind of hand you guys the floor here on Champ Select, because I know that you both have some more to say about Phoenix1's draft in particular.
All right, to start off, going back to game 1, they banned the Fiora on blue side. I thought to open up the Trundle pick, and they don't first pick it, they take Karma, CLG takes Trundle. Coming into game 2, you're on red side now, no Fiora ban, and then you first pick the Trundle, just leaving it open to the Fiora counter pick. I don't understand that at all.
It's like, so we know Darshan has a counter to the Trundle. He plays the swing, he plays the Fiora, plays everything into it, but we're going to need you, Zig, to take the Trundle. So I feel like...
That's a really tough position to be in as a top laner, where, I mean, and we shouldn't presuppose what the conversations are, whether or not Zig says, I want the Trundle, or it's the team saying, we'd like to put you on that Trundle. But that's a really tough position to be in as a top laner, to have to blind, or to have blind picked your top laner into a counter match.
It gives me the feeling that he's gotten this short end of the stick on the draft so many times that he just doesn't know that there's a long end to this. Like, he doesn't have to play a losing matchup. You have last pick on
I thought this was the whole stick. Telling me there's more?
Yeah, like, we could have saved the counter pick for him.
Yeah, it's just a total breakdown in like the team. Like maybe the coach wants to, but Zig, you need to stick up for yourself at some point and be like, no, why did we ban Fiora and not give me Trundle? Now you're giving me Trundle with Fiora up or something like that. And maybe at the same time, it's Zig saying he wants that. Like somewhere it's a breakdown. Moving on to CLG side, they get the Fiora counter pick, but then their 4-man core is kind of weird. It's like this protect comp. I like the Janna and the Karma against Trundle Olaf, but not when they have like nothing else to like.
Lucian Elise.
Yeah, there's no like setup. There's nothing to like really peel the team and hold them in place, and like no tank line.
It's a similar comp to what we saw some splits ago with the Lulu Lucian, so it can go into the late game and you have really strong threat in the Lucian, but it's so reliant on your AD carry just being immaculate. And 6A was not that.
Well, what needs to change there then in that core 4? Is it the jungle pick that
Well,
needs to change?
well,
like a Gragas?
normally you wouldn't do it with a split pusher. So like
Right.
you'd have a Maokai, a Nautilus,
Gotcha.
some other frontliner who's going to hold people down. So this Lucian would dash in with a bunch of shields on. You can't focus him. And then they can peel and all that stuff.
Right.
Here, there's no front line, there's no lockdown, and so you would think if you have the Fiora counter pick into the Trundle, just go with a more standard kind of wave cleary thing, keep the Karma support and don't flex it.
That or set up a little bit more of a siege, right? Lucian being a lower range AD carry, the Caitlyn, the Tristana might even work better as a core of 4 since you have that split pusher.
I think it ties into what we were talking about today, where against a lower macro team, it's going to be really effective to pick a split pusher because they're not going to know how to deal with it.
Well, and that's the thing. We really did see that Fiora wreaking havoc for Phoenix1 because even though they did get the Baron, and we're going to get to that replay, but even though they did get to the Baron, they still seem to have trouble being able to play against this 4-1 split. I do want to dive into the gameplay, and we can continue talking about all these points as it rolls out. 16 minutes in the game, we see CLG 2 for 1 here around the Rift Herald and trailing into the mid lane.
Yeah, P1's just totally split up. Zig's over the wall, both carries, Mash and the Victor Pyrian are on the right side. And then just here, they're so split up. There's people on the left side, over the wall, right side, that CLG just gets to turn back onto the left side of the line and pick up a couple kills here. So they get Nori, and then 6A is going to get the speed up to get.
This is, I was going to say, this is the power of the Karma Janna. You got a lot of speed and a lot of shields on the team.
Right.
It's easy to spread people out like that, especially against melee like Trundle and Olaf. You pick 2 champions that have the exact same weakness. Of course, one pick is going to counter all of it.
Right, but I think the next replay is the more important replay. 26 minutes into the game, Phoenix1 actually going to come out on top of this fight, 2 for 0, off of a very weird call by CLG to bring Darshan down to defend against this Baron.
So it's a great call for P1 to just force the Baron after having picked off Xmithie, but this just shows how rusty CLG is. Like, you have Darshan splitting on bottom, where a team like TSM, which are really good at taking something when the enemy is doing something else, and they obviously could just trade inhibitor for Baron, but instead they choose to go with a collapse on them when they clearly don't have the champions to be able to fight anything around that mark. You know, melee Fiora is going to get obliterated by Braum, which is exactly what happened. And we should have seen CLG trading inhibitor there and then open up the map further via split push.
Right. And this, you also saw the Lucian like wanted to go in there and start hitting people, but he didn't have anything protecting. Like the Fiora went in and just flashed out right away because it's not tanky. You can't actually sit in that pit. And I think
brings
this
us back to that Maokai point. If you had the Maokai there, doesn't need to flash out. I now have someone with me.
It's like CLG had 2 good ideas that don't really work together. You have like the Fiora who won the game on her own, basically. Like
who he TP'd?
Yeah, who he TP'd. But at that point, he already worked down so many turrets, the solo kills, gets the inhib on his own. Like the split push has won you the game. The 4-man core doesn't need to do anything. At the same time, you have this excellent Janna Karma. If you just build a team fight, team comp, they can win the game.
Right.
And you kind of saw how if they tried to TP in, that 4-man core isn't as strong. And so it was just like this weird thing where if they just stuck with one or the other, it would have been easier. But obviously, the Fiora did kind of go off.
I said, not necessarily happy with either draft, but ultimately this split push Fiora really showing why it is picked occasionally as that Trundle counter pick, because once you get to a certain point in terms of scaling, the 1v1 just goes in favor of Fiora. That's going to bring us to our final replay, which is the end of the game messiness, actually, if anything, as Zig doing his best at trying to save the base, and then CLG playing the, kind of that pressure game on the opposite side, threatening the Baron.
Yeah, so, they're just life-stealing, both of them next to each other. Zig obviously coming out a little bit behind on it. CLG is threatening this Baron. They don't really have a good Baron comp. You see Smithy's down to half health, just threatening it, takes a laser, and he's too low. And that's when Huhi starts TPing into the turret, because it's like, hey, they're all here. Let's just end the game.
Oh, he wants to be in the picture. You want to have that screenshot at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Where,
I helped. I'm helping.
Yeah, to be honest, I feel like Darshan could have been able to actually even finish that one.
Yeah, it looked like
how one-sided that match. I mean, he was life-stealing when he was healing on the Nexus, so.
Yeah, I think he might have been able to do that on his own, but you do see how important the Fiora pick was.
Right.
And definitely.
And that's who player of the game is going to go to, Darshan, on that Fiora. Even though 3, 1, and 2, relatively low action, kill action game in that regard, the amount of pressure that he's able to put on the map and ultimately winning that 1v1 against Trundle.
We had a big emphasis on watching his 1v1s against Zig, and what he would constantly do is just go in, burn the Trundle ult, lose the trade, then back off, and then re-engage when he knows that he has the ultimate advantage, and then just win every single all-in. And Zig fell for it every single time, resulting in those 1v1 deaths that were just so one-sided. If you just held on to the ultimate and trusted that as his escape tool to survive and just hold the turret, really understand what his goal is in the matchup, then I think that CLG would have had a much harder time breaking the base.
So Darshan stepping up his play in this series in particular. Of course, this is against Phoenix1. We'd be looking for him to do it against more top-tier, top-lane talent.
For sure. I mean, we saw him a couple weeks ago go off against a couple teams, and then once they started running up against the good teams again, CLG falls apart. And so what we're really looking for, and knowing that they play Phoenix,
They're going to play Energy as well as Immortals next
right.
week.
So like the Energy game, we can expect to see
I'll take
more
that back. TSM. They're going to play.
They have TSM
Energy and TSM.
Oh,
Energy closes out the.
Okay.
Pause down.
Bring it to today.
CLG. Yeah, let me just illustrate this right here. CLG is going to play Energy to close out the first half of their summer split.
Right.
Then they're going to play TSM to open up the second half of their summer split.
And that's where we want to see if Darshan can keep up these big performances. Because against the lower tier teams, they don't quite deal with split push as well. We see TSM as a really good macro game, and if he can pull this kind of stuff off versus them and their stronger drafting phase as well, that'll be impressive.
Just sounds like hopeful preaching at this point. Watching what TSM's doing in the lane side just immediately to massive CS leads early.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting kind of
style clash.
Right, exactly. But it's a weird thing to see CLG struggle in this style that they've been known for so long, and then in particular the fact that Darshan, it's not like the personnel that they were known for that with necessarily changed. Darshan's still there. He's the split pusher. So again, I think a lot of it's going to come to, can he put these performances up consistently against the top tier teams? We'll see if he can do just that. But for now, CLG are going to be happy with their 2-0 victory over Phoenix1. It's time now for us to throw you guys over to NALCS 2, where Apex is taking on Echo Fox after having secured the first game of the series. The teams are even in kills, but Apex